What's going on, guys? Matthew Muniz here. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about the gas prices that you see on a daily basis at the gas pump. More specifically, we're going to talk about the logistics, the relationship between crude oil and gas prices, taxes, price gouging, even what your local gas station dealer goes through when it comes to determining the price that you as the consumer are going to pay. Now, at the end of the day, I don't want to waste anybody's time, so I'm going to give you a TLDW, or a too long didn't watch. When it comes to fuel prices, there's no single person or single central authority that controls the price of fuel. So as much as we all place blame on a certain president or a certain company when it comes to the gas price, the reality of the matter is that there are thousands of decisions and factors on a daily basis that go into how 1 gallon of gas is priced. That's what we're going to dive into in this video. Now, the great thing is I don't need to give a disclaimer because this video has nothing to do with financial advice. Also, for my background, so you wonder, why should I listen to this guy? Well, the video is going to be pretty educational, but I do have over a decade of experience working in the oil industry with various companies. Now, if you want to stick around, let's get right into the video. Now, before we get into the actual cost of fuel, we do have to explain what is gasoline. Well, gasoline is a fuel made when crude oil is broken down into various petroleum products via a process called fractional distillation. Now, after that, certain additives are added based on the fuel or grade, and then the product created is then distributed to a holding center before it's then shipped to your local gas station. So that transportation process can happen in many ways, but the most typical is via pipelines. So with this entire process that we just laid out, how much of a cost of a gallon of gasoline is actually affected by crude oil? Crude oil is something that's traded on a daily basis. They have a futures market. It's just like the stock market. Well, to be honest, between 50 and 60%. In February of 2022, it actually raised to as high as 61%. Crude oil is the primary factor in what creates the cost of fuel at the pump. But there are other costs involved, which we're going to talk about next. But first, let's take a look at how volatile prices for crude are on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. So what we have here is an oil chart. Now, one thing to point out is this is crude oil WTI, or West Texas Intermediate. Another common one is Brent crude. But for this example, we're going to stick with WTI, which is typically $3 to $4 cheaper. Now, notice this chart. Now, we're looking at 1 year timeline on a daily basis, and you could see it's obviously trending upward, but it has very, very large swings up and down. I mean, all over the board. I mean, just back in November of 2021, we were down $60 a barrel, up to $120 a barrel. So looking at that, a swing of 100% in less than 6 months. The next thing I want to point out is that oil is traded on the global market. So it is affected by anything going on in the world. So a large event that happened back at the end of February, everyone knows about, was the war on Ukraine. Now, did this contribute 100% to the rising gas prices? No, because we've obviously been trending upwards for a long time. However, it did cause a large spike. We are starting to see a drawback, which is fantastic. But at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen. It could stay elevated. Obviously supply and demand are going to be involved. If there's increased demand, which typically in the summer there is, with less lockdowns, people want to travel, people want to go on vacation, then demand is going to go up. If supply is restricted, which we have supply chain issues everywhere, then price is, going to keep going up. However, if we start to have less demand, it starts to fall off because people can no longer afford to do things, which is what happens when gas prices go up, then you obviously see a price come back a little bit. So at the end of the day, like I mentioned, it's just like the stock market. You can't guess if it's going to go up or down. Something could happen out of the blue that could change the price in a heartbeat. So we know the largest chunk of what makes up the cost of fuel is going to be the price of oil at the time. However, we need to talk about refining. So refining, which is converting it from oil to fuel, is around 15 to 20% of the total cost. Now, companies need to refine the oil into fuel, and then they add necessary additives based on the quality or grade. Not all gasolines are equal, which is one reason why you see certain gas stations, usually like Mobil, that are on the higher side of pricing normally. Their fuel qualifies as top tier fuel based on certain additives that are inside the fuel. They claim a higher quality product, better for your engine, better for gas mileage, the list goes on and on. The average consumer doesn't really know this, so any unbranded gasoline that is a penny cheaper, more than likely the consumer is going to go to something like that. However, you're going to have people that drive Lexuses or BMWs, stuff like that, that are going to aim towards those branded stations that have the top tier fuel. After refining, it needs to be transported and then stored until it can be delivered to your local gas stations. The process of storing at the terminal is generally around 15 to 20% of the cost as well. And that includes the logistics as well, getting the fuel from one area to the other. So the last big piece of the pie is going to be taxes. And it's actually not that big. When it comes to the federal taxes that are on fuel, that's pretty minimal. Usually it's the states and the counties that add significant fees and taxes on their gasoline. At the end of the day, Uncle Sam always wants to get paid. He's not going to forget. Now, there are certain locations in certain states that have changed their tax law recently in order to give consumers a break at the pump. But honestly, it's almost a waste of time. For example, I live in New York State. There's currently a gas tax holiday going from June 1st until the end of the year. This gas tax is, on average, saving a consumer around 24 cents a gallon. 24 cents a gallon, 10 gallons, you're saving $2.40, but it's still costing you around $50 to fill up your tank. Yes, every penny counts, and I love saving money, so it's great. But at the end of the day, it's not free money. We're gonna have to pay that back somehow. The deficit is gonna increase. It's not all good news. Another thing is when you have such a small impact like 24 cents, if you have a swing in crude by 5 to 10%, which has happened in the past, you don't even notice that the taxes are gone anymore. When it comes down to it, if we want to do something about gas prices, we need to affect the price of oil. So we need to either increase supply or decrease demand. On top of that, we need a little bit of luck. Maybe if some of the geopolitical factor restraints that are happening right now, like the war on Ukraine that I've mentioned, if that was to stop, that would probably put us in the right direction. So we've talked about the cost that goes into making the fuel and how much it costs at the terminal. But now let's get a little bit deeper on how pricing works for gas stations. We're going to be a bit more theoretical here. Each gas station has a cost that they pay per gallon, and that varies on a daily basis depending on their form of supply. So if you have a gas station down the street that has 100 locations, and then across the street you have one that has one location, more than likely the business that has 100 locations is going to have a better buying power and be able to get cheaper gas than that other guy. But at the end of the day, they do not need to price based on how much they pay. They need to practice consistent pricing strategies. That way they're not considered price gouging. If they always price 1 cent cheaper than the guy down the road, then that's fine. If they always price 10 cents higher, then that's fine as well. It's about being consistent when it comes to the price gouging. Because you never know. That business may have higher overhead costs. They may pay their employees more. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. The other thing that not a lot of people know or realize is that with oil changing every day, like the stock market, if Station A gets a delivery today for $3.50 a gallon, Station B may get a delivery tomorrow where oil dropped 10%. Maybe he only paid $3.30 a gallon. So he may be getting gas 20 cents cheaper. More than likely, he's not going to drop his price 20 cents cheaper and force Station A to go down. That wouldn't make any sense. He's probably going to make a little bit more money for that load of gas because you never know. The next week it could be the opposite. It all comes down to averages at the end of the day. Certain gas stations may make more money right now, but next week they may not be making as much per gallon. At the end of the day, there isn't one person to blame for gas prices, and there's not one person that can fix it either. The only way that gas prices are going to change is if we could find a way to either increase supply or decrease demand. However, keep in mind, if demand goes down for oil, then what's going to happen is the business owners that own the gas stations, they're not going to be selling as much volume, which means their profits are going to go down. And if they need to support their families or their shareholders, they're going to need to increase their margins per gallon, which means they're going to be charging more. So it's all interrelated. Kind of fascinating, actually. At least I find it. So if you're still watching the video right now, comment down below what you learned today, or if you disagree with me, anything. I do my best to comment back on every single comment on all my videos. If you haven't already, make sure you smash the like button down below, subscribe to the channel for weekly content, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Take care.